said you were the closest to family or friend, even though you were killing me more every day.
I could eat a lot, but it was very controlled. I knew exactly how many calories I was consuming. I'm going to have 6 sandwiches, but I knew that each sandwich was 80 calories or something. So I said, okay, so that's be 480 calories. I will spend 2 hours standing up. That will be 400 calories. Okay, I should be able to lose that in 4 hours, which it will be good enough because I will have my snack. Then, yeah, it's good.
Striving to be perfect and best, not realizing the never-ending journey.
Yeah, it was definitely like I guess a lot of times in those periods of time when I would get depressed and everything, I did feel overwhelmed with the feeling of not having control over anything, and that was one of the places I could definitely control, where I would go and eat because I was depressed or sad or stressed, and then I could just throw it up afterwards and things would be great.
How do I fill the void? Am I worth life and happiness? Or am I setting myself up for failure again?
You might get a real thrill out of the taste of the food, but you're not. The body is not registering it at all. The only time my body is cognizant after I've eaten and eaten and eaten and gone on a binge like that is when I've finally eaten to the point where I got acid indigestion. Then I know I've done something, but other than that, keep on trucking.
Drenched, I think to myself, let it rain, let it pour, let it fill the emptiness inside my soul. Let it rain, let it overflow, let it heal the wounds I can't hide anymore.
Eating disorders are not about size, whether a person is thin or fat or medium size or tall or short. Many people with eating disorders feel very diminished and small inside of themselves. Many people feel that they have to hide from the world and therefore need to make themselves smaller. Eating disorders are really about trying to create the illusion of being in control of your life when you're not. Eating disorders are really about emotions. They really should have been called emotional disorders.
Very, very high demands from my family, especially my dad. Nothing was ever good enough. My mother was pregnant with my little brother, so I was getting my first sibling. I wasn't the perfect daughter that either of them wanted. It started actually when I was 12. I was in my school canteen. I was thinking this was very good. It was good food. And then I'm remember thinking, no, but you can't eat this. You're on a diet, remember? And then I walked out, although I was still hungry.
I was about 12 years old when I started to not eat. I had family issues. I had self-esteem issues. From very, very young of age, I was never good enough. I was stupid. I wouldn't eat. I'm also a cutter. I cut myself, my arms, and I would do that a lot.
The prettiest girl in school, like really popular, and it was very, it was really fun to have that experience. It was a huge thing, huge boost to my self-esteem. And then she stopped wanting it. She said she didn't want to go studying anymore, which for a 12, 13-year-old can be a pretty heavy blow. And then after that, she and a couple of friends gave me a hard time, and I lost 20% of my weight, became very, very skinny.
When my brother was 13, I was 17. He was killed in a soccer accident he was a goalie and got kicked in the neck and was killed instantly. And he was always the baby of the family, the smart one, the athletic one, and when you lose a child like that, I took it upon myself to fill that void, I guess, to be like the perfect child, get good grades, fill up the sadness that my parents were experiencing. I can't control the fact that he's gone and he passed away, but I can control my dancing and my eating. But then when I started going into New York City and training with American Ballet Theater and other dance companies, their environment wasn't very healthy, and I had a trainer that started to train me to go to Europe, and he would weigh me every day and before and after class. So then all of a sudden the scale was like this big competitive issue. It was like you're internally competitive with yourself. I hate scales because I would weigh myself in the morning, and if I was 5 pounds overweight, if I had been to a birthday party or dinner the night before, it would like ruin my day.
I was approached by this gardener more and more, and he started to sexually become interested in me. He threatened to kill me if I told anybody about his sexual activities with other girls that were 16 and how he wanted to have sex with me. And I kept quiet, being at that age that I was too scared to say anything. And I think the way that I dealt with it was to slowly and unconsciously, not really consciously, take away more and more food. I started to exercise more. It was just a way of coping with that stress and of becoming invisible. It was as if somebody was telling me, you have to exercise, you have to restrict. And I hated it. I hated it. It was something that I could not stop.
So after my third miscarriage, I decided, okay, well, if I can't be pregnant, I'm going to get really thin. And that'll make me feel better. And that way I'll have control over my body. I never saw what other people saw. No matter how much weight I lost, I would still think that I needed to lose more. I used to get on the scale 5-6 times a day. 30 years of trying to be skinny. I have transferred this problem over to my older daughter, Kate, who's 27 now.
I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is I look at my stomach to see if it got smaller from the day before. I lay in bed and I feel like parts of my skin touching one another. You look in the mirror and you're just utterly disgusted at everything you see every single time. And I started having fits of rage. For a long time, both my mother and I actually dieted on diet pills. I was later on introduced to more of the dangerous, recreational, street drug type of activity where it gave me the results that I was looking for. I was dropping weight like this extremely quickly. However, to me, I was happier than I had ever been in my life. In the same token, it was hurting me even more than anything that I did before that.
If I at a weight that I would like to be at, it makes me very happy that day.
Do you ever get to a weight that you like to be at though? Because I know I never do.
I haven't been at a weight that I like to be at in a very long time, but I don't think I can ever beat that weight again. And I'm learning to accept it.
On a psychological basis, anorexia has kind of a compulsive or relentless pursuit to continuing to lose weight or to avoid weight gain. Usually has a distorted perception visually and emotionally of their size, seeing themselves as much larger than the world sees them, almost to the point of risking their health, if not their own death. Some of the physical symptoms of anorexia can include amenorrhea or loss of period, which is the body's attempt in survival mode to conserve energy because someone's starving.
It's one of the deadliest of all psychological disorders. The second major eating disorder is called bulimia nervosa, and it is characterized by a couple things. One is binge eating. It's really eating a large amount of food in a short period of time, and a feeling of being very out of control when the eating is taking place, and often a feeling of secrecy. After a binge occurs, there's some sort of compensation, such as purging, which is self-induced vomiting, or abusing laxatives, over-exercising after a binge, or even fasting after a binge.
So it's sort of a feast or famine component to the bulimia also.
no matter what I did. If I was the smart kid, if I was really good in sports, if I was really athletic, I was still considered the fat kid. My father and my mom are divorced, and so like I had just spent an entire 2 weeks with my dad in Japan, and I was kind of getting pretty close to him, and I felt really close to him. I guess with my father, I've always felt like that I wasn't ever good enough. There was something that I always had to work on to make myself better for my father. I came back from Japan and I was eating really healthy there, and when I came here I started going back to my normal eating habits and everything, and I felt really sick about it, you know? Felt like it was really disgusting that I was getting unfit and everything, so I actually started throwing it back up every time I would start eating. I would binge on like some of the quickest food I could make, like microwavable burritos or something, canned ravioli that I could heat up or whatever.
You know, Sandra, whenever you break your diet, if you just go throw up what you ate, then you're back, so you don't have anything to make up for. So I think that's how it started, like with little things, like, okay, I'm dieting well today, but now I've had a small piece of somebody's steak, so no, that's not on the diet, so let me go throw that up. So then it kind of became a habit, like brushing my teeth. Throwing up what I ate became a habit. It was more important for me to look good, definitely more important for me to look good than to feel good.
We had a very rocky household. My dad was mentally ill and very violent, and eating was my way of feeling safe. Anytime I felt any kind of anxiety or fear, I would run to the refrigerator and eat something. It really didn't matter what it was, but just the act of eating itself, for some reason, brought me a lot of comfort. In college, a lot of the girls in my dorm said, hey, you know, if you eat something like really fattening, if you take X-Lax, you know, then you'll eliminate it right out. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. But after a while, that's kind of a hard, it's hard to deal with that little problem there. So, you know, that wasn't really an elegant solution. Then I tried purging. That wasn't very elegant either. And I had really bad throat problems and I didn't feel very good. But then the exercising turned out to be the thing that lasted the longest.
And that summer, I became bulimic, and I did everything imaginable. You know, the laxatives, the diet pills, the purging, whatever I could do, the over-exercising. It just completely snowballed. My parents had surprised me because I had just gotten out of this psych hospital. And they came to see me, and I didn't know they were coming. So I already did my thing for the day, my bulimia part. And I didn't know they were coming, and they came and surprised me. And the pills had popped in while they were there. And I assumed that they would go to sleep at night, and they didn't. And so I had, because I'm a laxative abuser, and I kept holding it forever, and I didn't make it to the bathroom. That was, I mean, then I knew it was completely out of control.
This came into play when I was a gymnast, and you know, I was already told by my coaches I don't have the perfect body type, all centered around the core issue, and that was what I was trying to control, was, you know, looking thin and trying to control my life by the amount of exercise and like over-exercising and, you know, overeating and then throwing it up thinking, oh, well, it's not going to affect me because I didn't really digest that food.
I was training as an international figure skater. The coach was very big on being the right weight, and that her moral was that you could never be thin enough. And we used to have to be weighed every week. And I remember we used to have to line up in a line outside her door and step on the scale, and she used to have a big chart above the scale with all our weights on it. I used to take laxatives at night before I went to bed, and I'd end up having to sleep on the bathroom floor because I couldn't stay in my bed. I used to pass out on the bathroom floor, and my mum used to come in and find me in the morning. That's when she knew that something wrong. My mum would go and search my room, and she would find them, and she would throw them away. And I'd come home, and I'd have a binge, and then I'd throw up, and then I'd want to take the laxatives, and they weren't there, and I used to go mad. The laxatives weren't enough. It wasn't helping me to lose weight. In fact, In a way, it put on weight because I used to swell up with so much water because my body would hold on to the water, and I'd end up looking like a hamster. I'd have cheeks like a hamster, so I couldn't really win anyway. I wouldn't eat all day, and then at night time, I wasn't living at home, I was living with a family away from home so I could do my training. And at night time I would get up and I would creep down and I would eat their cereal, and then I would go and throw up afterwards. And it just became a habit, really. It was just a way of life. I didn't really see a problem with it. It was just something I had to do for my skating. I had an accident and I ripped all my ligaments and tendons in my ankle. And I couldn't skate again. That was it. It was the end of my career. And I didn't know what to do with myself because it was all I'd ever done since I was 17. And my bulimia got really bad. Every day I used to make myself eat raw chicken, so I would get food poisoning. And it actually worked one day, and I ended up in hospital, and I was so sick that I actually thought I was going to die. I had to have a lumbar puncture on my spine. They had to drain my spine, and I was in hospital for 2 weeks after that. But I was happy because I'd lost weight.
With compulsive overeating, which is probably the most maligned of all the eating disorders and misunderstood, defining compulsive overeating by weight alone would be a poor measure, albeit that most people that compulsively overeat, of course, would have the symptom of obesity or weight gain. And it's defined more in terms of eating despite an absence of hunger, a loss of control over the eating process. It's almost as the switch for satiety, or when you've had enough to eat, is broken. Or there's a willful attempt to self-medicate with food by abusing it in large quantities. When we work with compulsive overeaters, we usually look at two types of a compulsive overeater. One that we call someone who tends to graze, which simply means constantly eating throughout the day. And the other type is more the binge eating disorder, anyone who is eating in one sitting more than their daily nutritional requirement, probably in the area of 15 to 2,000 calories. It's not unusual to see people gorging on 5,000 and 10,000 calories.
What I remember is sugar, 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 sugar. Whenever my mother used to pick me up from the babysitter, she would bring me sweet treats. That was being loved, that was seeing mom again, that was all those great things. My mother was overweight. I learned a lot of it from her. She was grazing all the time, and so was I. And I can remember being, let's see, junior high, being probably about 215 then, and the doctor putting me on diet pills. No, after college I just ate. And I guess that's pretty much been the pattern of my life. Eat a lot, try and diet, get some weight off, put it back on plus more. I'd been sexually abused as a kid by a babysitter's child. Hurt, anger, grief, stuff that you just don't deal with, that you don't share with anybody, that you just don't talk about. And so you cope with it with your food. The image in my mind about my body was not the real image. I stopped thinking about it.
The only thing I did was stay in the house and eat nonstop, watch TV. McDonald's or pizzas, I could eat a whole pizza by myself, and have like a half-gallon of ice cream later, and it didn't matter if I was full or not. I was lucky that I didn't suffer any of the consequences already. I was 5'50", I didn't have diabetes, I didn't have any problems with my heart. I'm gonna be turning 30 later this month, and I never thought that I'd be able to live to my 30th birthday. I didn't think I could live to my 16th birthday. My mother, who is overweight herself, I saw her die in front of me of a massive heart attack from this disease.
I had a lot of issues with race, and my identity. I had body issues. I felt like I was overweight. I was at a size that was bigger than I liked to be. I would use food when I was upset or bored. I mean, I have a very critical voice in my head, and sometimes I don't allow myself to feel whatever it is I feel, because this voice in my head tells me that it's not worth getting upset about. So instead of allowing myself just to feel what I feel, I would eat. When I was eating, I would feel a sense of relief and calmness with guilt hovering at the edges of it. Here's a low point, okay? I chased my husband on our honeymoon around a parking lot for a Dove bar. That's insanity.
When my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and we went to Houston for her surgery, and we spent 6 months in the hospital, and I would just eat throughout the way, all day long. Big breakfast, and then I would snack on junk food from vending machines, and then have a big lunch, and then snack more vending machines. So it was a vending machine overeating binge.
Okay, where am I going to get my fix? Where am I going to stop? I would get in the car after work and I would stop at various convenience stores or various fast food restaurants, and I would not stop at the same ones because I didn't want the drive-through people to recognize me or whatever. I'd order the super value meals or whatever, but I'd like throw out the drinks because they took up too much room in my stomach. I would take it home and then I'd binge, and I'd sit in the chair and watch TV until I digested, and then I could binge some more. And when I was binging, I really didn't think of anything because it was just automatic.
If you included compulsive overeating amongst the eating disorders and looked at anorexia, bulimia, and compulsive overeating, you would probably find that among the female population at any given time, you're probably looking at 20 to 30%. Males, it's estimated, are about 10%. But if you add compulsive overeating, I would say closer to 15 to 20%, or almost coming to the same proportion as males as females. The statistics of 20% of the female population would mean at any given time. If you looked at during their lifetime, I would have to say it's probably approaching 50%. And I would say it's probably somewhat less, but still astronomical for men as well. The risks that are prominent are death. Someone with anorexia, as well as someone with bulimia, they, through starvation or purging, become dehydrated and what's known as sudden death syndrome. Sometimes people will use a product to self-induce vomiting that has a toxic effect on the heart. Cardiomyopathy is a weakening of the heart tissue. Kidney disease. The more subtle, maybe not life-threatening, physical consequences range from having many dental caries or having to have all your teeth capped, both because of the high amount of sugar products you may be overeating, and also from the hydrochloric acid from purging. Lots of gastrointestinal problems. The more subtle consequences are quality of life. As I said, if you're eating disordered, your focus around food and weight becomes debilitating to the exclusion of other sources of pleasure or importance in your life. So the quality of life is really diminished with an eating disorder.
I have osteoporosis. I have a heart myocardia from my anorexia. I have digestive damage. I have liver damage.
If I eat any food, my stomach automatically bloats up. I get a lot of pain in my stomach, and I've almost had to retrain my body to be able to go to the bathroom without taking a laxative.
I felt wonderful, and I didn't have any physical problems. My health has been really, really, really good. The only thing that I really had a problem was walking, breathing, and pains in my legs, and I was beginning to feel uncomfortable.
My teenage years, I don't remember it. For 6 years of my life, I don't remember my life, except for eating and think about my next meal.
I would have panic attacks that it was so crazy and insane that I would start to clean my house very, very compulsively. And I would clean my whole house from top to bottom because I thought I was going to have a heart attack and die on the spot. And I didn't want the people who came to take out my body to think that I was a slob. So I would clean my house from top to bottom while I was sobbing uncontrollably and eating to make myself feel better, but I just thought that I was going to die.
All the time, all the energy that I put into it, that I could have done something different with. Another part is that I cannot enjoy 100% a good meal.
We call this actually a biopsychosocial model of explaining where eating disorders come from. There may be biological or even genetic predispositions. People with eating disorders have a neurochemical makeup very similar to people with depression. People who have a family member who have an eating disorder are 7 to 12 times more likely to get an eating disorder themselves. What is it about someone's individual personality that might contribute to them having an eating disorder? There are certain patterns that we see a lot. Many anorexics are too good to be true. They do just what they're expected to do. Overachievers, they do well in school, they're good athletes, and they're very compliant. They do what's expected of them and maybe even above and beyond that. If you're that compliant with your parents' expectations and others' expectations, you might want to control something yourself. So whereas the anorexic might kind of keep everything under the surface, they don't show their emotions. The bulimic or more binge eating pattern of personality, they show a lot of emotion. They have trouble regulating their emotion. They tend to have a lot of highs and lows, a chaotic lifestyle, difficulty controlling distress. Those are things that would be the psychological makeup that might contribute to the development of an eating disorder. There definitely seems to be something social going on in our community, in our culture, that is promoting the growth of eating disorders because they're so much more common now than they used to be. We all see media images portraying what is considered the perfect body image. A number of years ago, maybe that wasn't so much the case. We weren't teaching people there is a perfect body image. It was kind of more like, yeah, of course there's all body shapes and sizes. And now I think kids are growing up really believing there's a perfect way to be and striving for that, even if it's unattainable for their own body type. But there does seem to be an influence of the media and cultural expectations. An example of that is that they did some research in Fiji. When they introduced American television and American commercials, the incidence of eating disorders doubled.
People want to look for a simple answer, and there is none, because no one has the answer. There are so many components for so many people. What's more important is looking at the solution than the problem.
I had heard people talk about bulimia, but even though I was doing that kind of thing, I never thought that I was. So I had this in my head that, throwing up every once in a while that's just not a problem. So I didn't even remotely think that I had ever had an eating disorder until I really read the definition and went, oh my gosh, I actually used to do that.
All my very close friends and my husband were on my case because they said I looked terrible and I'd lost too much weight and I needed to stop. When you're in that mode and when you're in that mindset, you don't see it and you don't feel it. Nothing I can do about it. It was their problem, not mine.
I totally felt that bulimia was only a female issue kind of thing, that only girls got bulimia and anorexia and stuff because, like, how could a guy go on it kind of thing? How could he become anorexic or bulimic? That it's a way of keeping myself healthy, working out almost, like it's just as good as working out because I'm not putting as much food in my body now that I would have to work off.
I didn't believe taking diet pills, and when they take them off the market, you try to find somebody they'll sell them to you in the back alley was a disorder.
I think it's important to not necessarily confront that person, but I would call it care front, meaning that I would tell your truth to that person, that you care about them and that you know that they have a problem.
Talk to that person one-on-one. You're not going to get together like a group intervention of everyone who's concerned. That would more scare someone or turn them off or make them mad. try to avoid talking just about the physical. So you want to not so much focus on the weight, you want to instead focus on your concerns about their health. So make as many I statements as you can rather than you statements. You don't want to say, you're so skinny. You want to say, I'm concerned about your health. Because if you say, you're so skinny, one, you could be reinforcing the person, and two, the person can just say, no, I'm not. We all have to have body fat to live. Men and women. Women need more than men even. You know, our reproductive systems won't work without it. A lot of our organs require body fat. Most sports are really a protective factor for young girls because it teaches them just the joys of having a strong body and how to value their body for something different than just appearance, because we all are so much more than what we look like.
To recognize that despite feeling uncomfortable or feeling ashamed, that the next right thing to do is to not make it a secret. This doesn't mean telling everybody you have an eating disorder, but it means telling your parents, telling your spouse, telling people that you trust and support, and also exploring the possibility of seeking professional help.
You can go to a family member if you know that they could help you find the right professional, but if you don't feel like you can do that yet, go to your school counselor. If you're a college student, go to your college counseling center, go to the school nurse, or go to the college health center. All of those places will be able, if they're not able to treat you themselves, they'll be able to connect you with the right resources. But tell someone.
Let it rain.